morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for joining us for our video summer series. In this series, we're going to highlight some conversations that we've been having with clients, either with our advisors or with our investment committee. And we thought if these are questions that some are having, maybe these are questions that many are having. So we're going to go through one today that happened recently. This was a client that called in and asked about market volatility. They'd heard about it on the news. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that phrase. I was watching the news and fill in the blank after. In this case, something that was going on that day was going to create market volatility. And their question specifically was, tell me about the risk to me, right? So when I talk about market volatility, I think it's very important to note that volatility, like the market going up and down on any certain days, doesn't define risk to you. It defines risk to the market. And those are two separate things, right? If the market volatility causes you to make an emotional decision, then there's where the risk comes in, right? If on a day when the market is down and you've got fear and it causes you to sell, then there's the risk. If the market's up and it causes greed and it causes you to buy, then there's a risk. But in and of itself, the ups and downs are not. Those four risks, and we're going to go through each of them and how to manage it. Inflation, longevity, sequence risk, and emotional decisions. So those are the four that actually apply to you. First risk we're going to talk about is inflation, something that's become really real in recent years. We haven't had to deal with it in about 42 years, but it's really prevalent right now. Inflation to you means if I need $10,000 per month to satisfy my lifestyle now, 20 years from now, that same lifestyle may cost $20,000 per month. And so what we do to manage around that is to match up our investments along with our spending needs. Right, so we're going to have a bucket of investments that satisfy our now needs. It's going to produce those dollars that you need for now. 20 years from now, we have a different set of investments or bucket of assets that are designed to grow so that 20 years from now, they can satisfy that $20,000 worth of needs. Our next risk we're going to manage around over the last several decades, the life expectancy of people has been elongated. We used to plan to live until age 70, maybe age 80. We're seeing our parents live into their 80s and 90s. We're seeing people live even longer than that. We can never predict which day we're going to need our money to last to, so we want it to last even longer than we potentially might need it to. So we're planning not just for how to have dollars of income into our 80s, but our 90s and even past that. Those two are kind of tied together, the inflation and longevity, because the longer you live, the longer the impact of the inflation risk to you. One of the least talked about risk and maybe more nuanced is a concept we call sequence risk. And this has to do with when you start needing your money. Usually it's right after you retire or before Social Security kicks in, one of those things. But those first couple of years that you start, instead of becoming a saver, you start becoming a spender. What does the market look like for those first few years, right? Is the sequence in those first couple of years good markets or bad markets? And it's important because this is the first time we're taking money out of our accounts. We don't want to be taking money out when we don't have to, right? So there's market up years and down years. If that first year that you need your money is a down year and you haven't planned for it, right? If we haven't set aside money this is our now money that I referenced before, then you're going to be forced to sell when you don't want to. So we've got to manage around the sequence risk. What is possible in the next few years, and then the years after that, and the years after that. And the fourth one is emotional-based investing. We talk a lot about this in our investment committees, the benefits of having a sound structure and strategy that keeps you making non-emotional decisions versus being susceptible to fear and greed leaking into how you think about managing your investments. We've got a lot of examples in recent years. I think maybe the most top of mind for folks is when we went through the pandemic. The pandemic created a lot of emotions, both on the health side and the family side and the money side and our jobs and our economy. We can keep going from there. But if all of those emotions cause you to make a long-lasting and poor decision in your dollars and when you needed it, being susceptible to fear and greed, that's a risk also. So to combat that risk, you have a sound strategy, it's well thought out, and you stick with it in times of good and bad. So this was a real conversation that we had with the clients. And of course, we talked about more than just the risk, but that was the top of mind question that they had. And after going through summer travel plans and how the kids are doing, mine are 3 and 7, by the way, we got into what else? What else is on your mind? And then this is where I think we got to the real reason that the client called in, the real reason they were having to panic about this nasty news cycle that they had heard. They said that their oldest was now having their first baby, so their first grandbaby. And in that came out the real question. It wasn't just about them and the rest of them. They were now thinking about the next generation. And so we got into a fun conversation about what can you as one generation do for the next one and the one below that. We started talking about college savings plans, even though this child was newly born, talk about ways to save for college. And if they don't use all their money in their college saving plans, there's a new rule out there that says you can roll that into an IRA. So think about this. We were talking about IRA conversations for a 1-year-old. Money that 1-year-old may not need for 60 years. We're going to see the beautiful benefit of compound interest for 60 years. And that's when it really got exciting. But that's when the conversation turned to what really mattered to them. So given that, I want you to have heard this story. And if any of these things are concerns to you, please give us a call, give your advisors a call the investment team. We're happy to have them. But if it's more than just the nasty news cycle and there's something else, anything else that is what you want to talk about, please give us a call.